Okay, show, stop being self-aware. I need joke material too, you know. We opened this week with Yuriko giving an interview about how well put together their school was. Pretty sure that term lost all meaning after a certain town almost became the epicenter of the apocalypse. It was certainly inaccurate for this situation, considering some delinquents were trying to hang their banner in the background, and unfortunately, those delinquents were our main characters, who in a predictable turn of events, ended up ruining the interview thanks to a little gust of wind. Probably should have weighed it down with something more than just a seal plushie. Understandably, Yuriko was rightfully teed off.
Not
really, Asuka. As far as we can tell, A, y'all put up a banner without the school's permission, B, did not use proper safety precautions when doing so, and C, almost severely injured a fellow student and a whole news crew. If the cameraman hadn't held on this shot of a wet Yuriko for whatever reason, y'all would have been on the hook for a broken several $1,000 camera. If anything, they really should be considering expulsion for all 5 of you. Fortunately, this massive nose attached to some bushy hair came in to save the day. He was the reporter, and apparently the clip of them falling into the fountain had gone viral and had likely garnered them their highest ratings in ages. Oh, I don't have a reference clip. There's honestly way too much to choose from in a world where both CNN and Fox News exist. But yeah, because of that, not only did he want to thank them, he also wanted to invite them onto his quiz show. Fun fact, this guy is actually a special guest star named Satoshi Mukai, whom the Precure social media have been making a big deal out of, because, as usual, he's a comedian, specifically a member of a trio called the Panther. Oh, how I hope their act involves an actual one coming out to eat them. Okay, just so we're clear, I get why this franchise brings in these guys for the notoriety and all that, so I can't really fault that. I just don't like it when they clearly have no acting chops, and yet somehow cheat their way to the tops of the NHK popularity polls. That said, to Mukai's credit, his character was mostly inoffensive. I mean, his line delivery was mediocre at best, but at the very least, he wasn't cracking lame gags every other minute, or mugging to the screen with his overly detailed features. Which, yeah, another thing, they really shouldn't try to capture the exact likeness of the real person, because I'll just come out and say it, Asian faces really do not look all that great in anime, not unless it's a Satoshi Kon project where that's kind of the point. Mukai suggested they use the quiz show to sell their differences, which, considering how much the Tropical Club had proved to be a genuine nuisance, Yuriko didn't even need to entertain such an absurd proposition. Say, who wrote this episode? Yeah, say, could someone go check to see if Murayama's still on his meds? I mean, to be fair, I think she wanted to use the drama generated by a competition with the Tropical Club to draw more attention to their school, but it does feel a little forced for the usually level-headed president. Anyway, the games were on the next day, which, as usual for the show, did lead to some good characterization through everyone's varying degrees of enthusiasm for being on TV, with Asuka being a nervous wreck being especially fun to see. Though she would have to shake it off, as the student council were ready to go, even having recruited Toshino Kyoko into their ranks. I would say y'all are the worst authority figures I've ever seen, but then I remember, I live in Hawaii. The quiz show itself was going to be 4 rounds of questions, with more points being awarded to whichever team answered correctly first, while runner-up teams could earn some consolation points. The first round took place on the beach, and required them to produce a numerical answer using... hey, assholes, you're kinda polluting the beach, just saying. Seriously, most of those cards are probably drifting away into the ocean. Anyway, the answer to the question was 1,000, but the cards only went from 0 to 10. And while this was supposed to be a brain teaser, the answer was pretty damn obvious. They just had to use either a 1 and 3 zeros, or in Minori's case, a 10 and 2 zeros to produce 1,000. I mean, they really tried to play this up like a big aha moment, even though I think even the youngest kids watching the show could figure it out, and more importantly, it was definitely not worth polluting the beach over. Seriously, as someone who lives near one, this kind of stuff triggers me. Anyway, the Tropical Club won the first 5 points of the game. The next round was true or false on whether or not the blue whale was the largest animal on the planet. Obviously, the ocean expert Laura answered, and chose the wrong answer. Yeah, but I think that was only because of some plant fertilizer. That looks horrible! The third round was not an actual quiz, but rather a competition to dress a teammate in the thickest layer of clothing possible. Pretty sure all you have to do is bring in Aunt Tamaki and you'll automatically win. Well, that, and they also need to be within a budget of 10,000 yen, which the Tropical Club did have an advantage thanks to their resident fashion expert, but they still ended up losing because Manatsu put them over budget because of some needless earrings. Thus, having gained no points over the previous 2 rounds, while the student council won at least 4 points each round, meant that the games were pretty much all but over. That's an especially appropriate clip considering whose voice that was. Like, seriously, this has to be one of the most asinine scoring systems I've ever seen. If the final round is worth 2/3 the maximum amount of points up until that round, then that makes almost all the previous rounds pointless! Still, they at least didn't make it an easy round, as while the question was an easy one, just asking what seed they were currently in, they first needed to push a certain button. Gee, I wonder if it was that one button that was not at all solidly foreshadowed earlier in the episode. Minori, of course, was able to figure it out, which led to Manatsu blurting out the button's location for everyone to hear. Yeah, I think the biggest question this episode produces is where did our main heroine's brain go? With that, the final sprint came down to Asuka and Yuriko. Manatsu might have joined in had she not been stopped by... oh, I don't know, maybe one of the most obvious jokes possible for this situation? Murayama, please, for your sake and ours, don't force yourself to do comedy. All of this stupidity aside, this did at least lead into an exciting final sprint between Asuka and Yuriko, thanks to some good direction and some over-the-top deliveries from their VAs.
Just f*** already!
Both seemed to hit the button at the same time, and oh yeah, we hadn't gotten our Monster of the Week fight yet, did we? I'm not even really exaggerating, Newberry just kind of came out of nowhere with no build-up to fulfill this episode's quota. Now, this did lead into a nice subtle bit of Asuka showing genuine concern for her rival by trying to distract the Yaraneda, though it didn't work out in the end. With that, we got a not-so-great fight, as I had to agree with Asuka, the monster's buzzer head was annoying. Thus, she used her finisher to set up for Laura's finisher. Remember when these awesome finishers actually finished off the monsters?
Pepperidge Farm remembers.
Anyway, after replaying the final sprint on even slower slow motion, it was confirmed that Asuka pressed the button first. Also, conveniently, for no real reason, the video completely missed the appearance of the Yaraneda.
Well, that's just lazy writing.
With that, our heroines won the game show and saved their club, as if there were any doubt. Man, the episode ended with another good display of our main heroines' personalities as they showed their love for their city, not as though it really made up for all of the stupidity in this episode. You know, when I think of an Isao Murayama script, I usually think of a highly character-driven episode with a ton of world building, and yet, this felt like he was trying to imitate Yoshimi Narita and her meme-dom. I think ever since his first episode for the show got criticisms for not quite having comedy that matched with the rest of the series, he's been trying to overcompensate with a lot more comedy than he's used to, which unfortunately goes against his usual style. I mean, I think he can do comedy, but it's clear that he's kind of forcing himself, and as a result, not every gag lands. Worst of all, if we had gotten the usual Murayama, we could have gotten some much needed character building between Yuriko and Asuka, and instead, we got nothing. One thing that has become quite apparent, especially having read several of my commenters' comments, is the fact that this show has become very Laura-centric even kind of before she became Lemaire. Now, that wouldn't be such a problem if we had gotten some follow-ups to some story beats established early into the season, like Sango's feelings of isolation, Minori's novel, and Asuka's mysterious past seemingly involving tennis and Yuriko. This episode was a prime opportunity to start delving into that last one, especially with someone like Murayama at the helm, but either because he didn't feel like it, or they needed to make a more goofy episode to build around the guest star, we got
nothing!
And really, it's not just that this whole episode felt like a big missed opportunity, but on its own, it's not even that great of a comedy episode. Some jokes required characters to be out of character, while others felt incredibly forced. Seriously, a banana pratfall in 2021? I mean, really, this episode was more frustrating than anything, with all sorts of leaps in logic, even though I know Murayama knows better than this. And while there are some good moments here and there, like the final sprint between Yuriko and Asuka that provide us with at least some build towards their rivalry, and cute little bits of characterization from our main heroines, all of that was ultimately drowned out by a pointless game show that would even be worth parodying on SNL. Hope life is treating all of you well. As I hinted at earlier, I think our state is being run by a bunch of out-of-touch morons, but I do think the residents are doing well, so it's all good. Personally, I'm just gonna keep doing my thing, which includes playing a little catch-up with my Wednesday videos, as well as getting around to finishing up that next Toy Trinity video. Look forward to all of that. Until next time though, farewell for now, my friends. And hey, you ever wonder what it would be like to be on an actual Japanese game show? Yeah, don't imagine it too much for your own safety.